It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Oh, okay. Well, come on, go back. Oh, come on. Okay, got a little crisis here, guys. Hey, hold on. I think you can hear me. Welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. Boy, now my computer's like all frozen up, so I'm not even sure if the show's playing. Anyway. The show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. Oh, getting a little closer. Okay, we are back. Okay. Welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. Okay. Now, what's going on here? Yeah, Spreaker has been acting up tonight. I think it's because I haven't been. Okay. Oh, by the way, I got a complaint this week on YouTube that I sigh too much and that I say "oh boy" too much. Okay, me and Vic we were joking about that all day yesterday. We went for a hike yesterday up on Mount Charleston, and I don't know if you've been watching your news past 24 hours. But we got hit with some flooding yesterday here. You have no idea. Before we left to go up to Mount Charleston, we're going to go to Mount Charleston for a hike. The first day off I've had probably in about 3 weeks since we got back from California. I've been working every single freaking day, like 10 hours a day. I'm exhausted. You have no idea. Today is the most tired I have ever been when I've done a radio show. That I can tell you for sure. Tonight. Okay, and I've been working all day today. Since last night, because I got this client who, oh my God, I'm trying to keep this guy out of jail. Where he's got all these warrants, man, in these different states, you know. And so he had an arraignment here in Nevada, and we had to keep him out of the courtroom because the bail enforcement agents from another state were coming to pick him up if he showed up at the court. So it was this whole thing. We had to keep this kid out of jail. Oh, my God. I'm exhausted. I was working on that all night with this guy. So yesterday, me and Vic, we took the day off, and we decided to go up to Mount Charleston to go for a hike, right? Because it's like 30 degrees cooler up there in Mount Charleston. So we checked the weather before we went, and we were worried about the wind because it was windy down here, you know? And so we checked the weather report, and it says, no, it's going to be mostly cloudy. And the wind was half the wind that it was down here. And it was like 9 miles an hour up there. And down here it was like 18 miles an hour. So I said, okay, great. You know, we'll get out of this wind. You know, get out of this heat. We'll go up there, go for a nice hike in the trees. And we'll bring our camera, you know, we'll take some pictures. All this wonderful stuff, you know. So, we get all the way up, you know, and by the way, too, since we've gotten this car fixed, you know, we got this little cheap car, and I had to put a new front axle in it, and we put some new tires on it, and some new brakes and stuff like that, with a little tune-up, you know. So I said, oh, great, now we can take a long trip all the way up to Mount Charleston. It's like an hour drive away. You got to go like 65 miles, you know, an hour the whole way. And we get up there, and just as we're getting to the location where the hike is, this place called Mary Jane Falls. There's this big giant waterfall. You have to climb up this, you know, hike. And at the top, there's this big waterfall. Very popular hike here in the Las Vegas area. The car stalls out. The oil light goes on. Some other light that I've never seen before in my life. I don't know what the hell this light was. Can't even describe it to you. This indicator goes on. And the car just stalls out. I said, oh, no. here we are, man. We're all the way out of town, to get a tow truck up here. It's like a 3-hour wait to get a tow truck. I can't afford to tow this thing back. What are we going to do? And I saw the oil light going on. I knew the car, for some reason, it drinks up oil. It doesn't burn oil, and there's no leak. But it just goes through oil like insanely. So we put the car in neutral, and we roll it down the hill to get out of the way of the road. And, Vic, she's used to this kind of stuff. She's been dealing with this kind of crap since she was a little kid, ever since the divorce, And we said, okay, what are we going to do? Okay, well, there's a volunteer fire department down there. Let's hike down there and see if they'll give us some oil. So we hike all the way down the road, to get to the volunteer fire department place. And first we went to the paid firemen, and we knocked on the door. No one's there. And across the street is the volunteer firemen. And thank God, the Mount Charleston Volunteer Fire Department, these guys are really cool. They gave us 2 big things full of oil. It's diesel oil. It's oil for a diesel engine, so it's way too thick for my car. I got to get the oil changed. But we were able to hike back up to the car and put the oil in the car. And, it started up, and I was able to drive the car home. Now I just got to get an oil change on it to get that old, yucky, old oil out of there. So we go on our hike, and we start driving home. And while we're on our hike, we get stuck in the rain. It starts raining on Mount Charleston, and it's freezing up there. It's like now it's below 60 degrees because it's all cloudy and it's all raining. And we get down to the bottom, and we hear on the news that Las Vegas is flooded. There was incredible flooding that went on, and hail, 2 inches of hail, landed here in the Las Vegas area yesterday. And all the flood channels were overloaded, and cars were stalled everywhere from trying to drive through the big puddles. And we almost, I had gotten off the 215 to get on to get on Windmill, to like a shortcut, because I had to drop Victoria at her mom's house. And we were coming down Windmill, right by Costco over there, and we were at the light. And there was so much traffic, it was just unbelievable. There was just traffic everywhere. But all these cars were going through this big, giant river of water in this intersection. Yeah, there was hail. A lot. And I'm watching all these cars going through, and Vic is saying, oh, look, some of those cars are smaller. Because our car's like a little go-kart. It's a Hyundai Accent. We call it a go-kart. It's so low to the ground that it's such, it like zips around. You can park anywhere. You can squeeze into little spaces. It's, so it's fun. It's a 4-cylinder car. I never had a 4-cylinder car before. But anyway, and she's saying, oh, no, Dad, look, those cars are getting through. Those cars are getting through. And I said, you know what, man? I says, no way. I says, this is a bad idea. So I made this little turn to avoid the whole intersection. And then I saw it. I said, just then, because when the light changed and all those cars were going through, it was creating like a wake behind the big trucks, so the little cars were able to get through. But when the cars on our side started, they all got stuck. So thank God I didn't go through there, because we would have been stuck. And then we were able to make a little detour through a parking lot and get back on our road, back where we had to get. But what a freaking adventure, man. And I tell you, man, the weather out here was insane yesterday. Just freaking crazy. Got a little bit of news to report to you here. It's being reported that Hillary Clinton tomorrow afternoon on Saturday is going to be interviewed by the FBI in her home about the email scandal, which kind of explains why Bill Clinton was there on that Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport there, talking to the Lynch, the Attorney General, trying to cut some kind of last-minute deal. Anyway, I don't think it looks good for the Clintons, guys. That's what my bet is, and so keep your fingers crossed. We have coming up, I'm going to be talking on June 7th to Gary Byrne, who was the Secret Service agent that worked for the Clintons, and he just came out with a book. And the book is not even out yet, but we have him booked, and he's been on Fox News and stuff like that. So he's a big guest, and we got him coming on the show shortly. Today I taped with, what was that guy's name? Oh, Dean Arnold, who wrote a book about Hillary and Vince Foster. So we did another Vince Foster show today and filled 2 hours with it. Went very fast. Really nice, likable guy is Dean Arnold. And his book is Hillary and Vince. Story. And he claims, his theory is that they were having an affair, that Vince Foster was having an affair with Hillary. So, I don't know, we've had some, and he's listened to all my shows. So, as a matter of fact, get this. Part of his book, the Kindle version, he's going to update with information from my interviews that I did with Kathleen Willey and with Michael Rivero. So another book we're going to be in. I tell you, Opera Report's like in a whole bunch of books, man. People reporting on the information we bring you here every week. You should be very happy that I bring this information. Even though I do sigh and I do occasionally say, oh boy, which I do apologize for. Tomorrow we got Matthew Richer. Matthew Richer wrote a book. He's friends with Tom Grant. And he wrote a book about Kurt Cobain, murder, and Courtney Love. So we're going to be doing 2 hours on that tomorrow on American Freedom Radio. Hey, one more announcement. I almost forgot. Awake Radio. Okay, we're broadcasting tonight on Awake Radio, right? But I think they're going out of business. I think Awake Radio is shut down for good. One of the managing people over there says, he sent a message out saying, well, that's it, I'm retiring from radio and we're going to give up the station. So, and they're going to be going to another station. They're trying to, let this other station absorb it. But I had a problem with that other station. Not really the other station, but this character that runs it, who was, what a piece of work this guy was, man. Well, this really pisses me off. I'll tell you what happened. They were playing my show there live Friday night, simulcasting the show, right? And the owner of the station all the time would call in and annoy the hell out of me, bugging my guests, trying to book my guests for his own show. And then calling in questions. I was polite. I let him call in and stuff like that, even though the questions were stupid, But I'm a nice guy. And then he takes Friday off, right? And he lets some other woman come in and produce Friday nights. So no one tells me, but they drop my show, and this woman takes my show slot. Of course, because it's the highest rated slot on the whole station. Okay? She takes my slot, okay? Doesn't tell me that, that they canceled the show and they're not going to play the show anymore, whatever happened to it. That she just sort of broadcasting during my slot. Then I'm promoting every week. I'm going to their Facebook every week, their Facebook page, and saying, I got May Pang coming on this week. I got Billy Hayes from Midnight Express coming on this week. All these big freaking guests I got coming on, right? And the owner of the station is re-sharing my post. He knows my show's not on there, but they want people to think they're going to tune in and find me and my guests on their show. And some other ladies on there, okay? And this other lady... I can't believe I'm getting so pissed off about this. But the whole thing was, I got so pissed off when I found out about this, man. Because I was checking the audio one night. I said, let me check the audio and see if it's playing. Let me see if it's playing on this station, how it is on this station. And I logged into that station while the show was playing. And I go to the chat room. And people are in the chat room saying, hey, what happened to Opperman? Where's that Opperman? Where's the Opperman show? And I said, oh, yeah, he's not doing the show tonight. We don't know what happened. And meanwhile, this other lady's playing a show with some nonsense, like two old ladies talking to each other with some crap, new age nonsense BS. Anyway, it's not a station you're thinking of recently there, Allison. This is from a while back. This is way back when I had May Pang on the show. All the stations I'm on right now are really cool. So these guys were using my name and my promotion, and they still had a link to my show on their website, Anyway. I'm over that. So anyway, Awake Radio, they're going to be, they're supposed to be absorbed by that BS station. new age nonsense crap. But I'm bringing some of the hosts over to People's Internet Radio. So I don't think we'll have any effect there. But if you listen to us on Awake tonight, there's a good chance we won't be on there next week. The station will be off the air. So if that happens, you can find us at so many other stations. People's Internet Radio is a great station with a big chat room. Public streaming network, PSN Radio. Angel over there, nice big station. You got a lot of people in the chat room. Deprogrammed Radio. IPM Nation, which is a huge station. And also to Shaz's Radio, and you can find me on Spreaker, on iHeart, all that kind of stuff as well. Okay. Ooh. Got some good stuff going on here. A little bird has been sending me information. Okay. And I got some info. I'm really not allowed to talk about this. But the Democratic Convention is in Orlando. The Platform Committee is meeting this Friday in Orlando. And I'm actually getting updated on what's going to be in the platform that they're proposing from the Bernie camp. I'm getting information from the Bernie camp on what our side wants to get put into the platform. Now, I don't know yet what I'm allowed to talk about and what I'm not allowed to talk about. But we may be doing an impromptu show, a special show, because they're not allowed to talk to the media yet, the delegates for this platform committee. But we might do an impromptu show on Wednesday night to report to you on what's going on, because I think the first vote or the proposal comes on Wednesday. But we're going to be making a big stink about this, because the Hillary camp, they want to vote for fracking and stuff like that, and TPP and all that kind of crap. So the more progressive wing, the Bernie wing, we're fighting back. Okay, that's about it for that. Okay, get rid of that. Let's see. Yeah, I'm really tired. Maybe I should take the night off. Okay. Pull up my notes. Everybody loves the notes. So, I gave a little preview, you might call it, because when I was talking to our guest in the previous show, in the past 2 hours, right at the end of the show, I'd gotten some big news last week. Okay? That's funny. As soon as I pulled up my notes, the first thing it says is big news. Really interesting situation went on this week. On Sunday, when Victoria was a little kid, when she was about 5 years old, and we started going back to Trinity Life Center, the church over there. This is the same church, by the way, that I got saved in like 1989, when I was about 29 years old on my birthday, and I got saved in this church. I went to the altar call, gave my life to the Lord. And then I started attending that church again around 2005, when all this crap happened with the divorce and I got kicked out of my house. I started taking Victoria to church with me. And that's the church we started going to. And when Vic was really little, we used to go to Wednesday night prayer service. And we're, not that many people, about 20 people. We'd stand around a circle and everybody would pray out loud and stuff. But me and Vic would do this thing where we would go in between the pews and we'd get down on our knees and we'd pray to God. And she loved it. And we were even talking about this week about how much we missed doing it, It was a really powerful time for us. And even a couple of times, when I'd be dating these different girls, we'd bring them with us, we'd bring my girlfriend with me, and we'd get down there on our knees and pray. And there's some pictures on my Facebook about one of my ex-girlfriends, Holly, when we used to take her to church with us over there. And she was so excited. Oh, I've never prayed like this. The greatest thing. Oh, my God, this is so cool. So On Sunday, the church we're in right now, at the end of the service, they did this thing where, they had like a prayer, and Vic says, hey, let's do like we used to do over at Trinity and get down on our knees here in the middle of the pews. So we did that. We got down and we prayed, And had a long day on Sunday doing things. I forget what it was, but it was a busy day, I know that. And we got home around 6 o'clock at night, and I got this message. And it's a really, really huge opportunity. Like I said, it's a huge opportunity first of all, it's a payday. I'm going to get paid. Okay, it's a working job. But this is actually will be, when I get this, the single biggest case I've ever worked on. It'll be historic. And it's big, guys. Okay, and it will have huge, but I can't talk about it yet. But also, too, I may be in charge of press relations in this case as well. So, really, really excited about that tonight. I want to ask you to keep me in your prayers about that because it's not confirmed yet, okay? I'm not hired on this thing yet. And we're still negotiating pay and all that kind of stuff, and severance, and my limo, and my private jet, and all the things I'm going to need to pursue this case here. So, keep me in your prayers about that, okay? Because we all know how important it is to thank God and to lean on God for our petitions and things like that. So I was kind of hoping I'd make more sense tonight than I seem to be making. But that's all right. That's all right. The audience will forgive me. Me and Vic started going to that church when she was around 5 years old. And I was around the same amount of time that I got kicked out of my house. My ex-wife got the house. And for a little while there, I was living with roommates. And then finally I got a little bit of money from the settlement from my house. And I was able to rent a nice house in this nice neighborhood, close to where we live now. And it's kind of funny because when I first moved in, I didn't have any movers. I moved. First of all, one day I got to tell you the story about when moving into that house, because I had to move all the stuff out of my old house, stuff that was in the garage, my desk and my office furniture and stuff, and things, and stuff that was in the garage, into a storage unit, And it's a long story, but I had to rent this big truck, and get in. And they told me, okay, if you got to get out of here by 7 o'clock or 7:30, whatever the time was, because the door's locked and you can't get out. And I was so careful to, keep track of the time. And then I was running to unload everything off the truck to get into the storage unit. And I didn't get the truck out. I go to get the truck out, the gates are locked. I can't get out. So it's a really long story. I had to climb up on top of the truck and jump over the gate. Then there was a windstorm, and I had to run through the road with my hands over my eyes because there was like dust and stuff blowing in my face to go get back to where my car was. At the car rental place, the truck rental place. And that's a story for itself. But around 2005, when I moved into that neighborhood, into that house, I was really fit. I was very strong back in those days. I was doing push-ups all day long. I could do like 80 push-ups at a time, and I would do it like 10 times, 15 times a day, all day long. And I'd go swimming every day, bike riding. So I was really fit. So I moved in all 3 bedrooms worth of furniture into this house all by myself. And the neighbors saw me, and they couldn't believe, who's this maniac down the block there moving with this moving truck, this big giant moving truck, and he's moving all this stuff all by himself. So I made a big splash on the neighborhood, And Vic had this little friend of hers. It was this little boy, and she used to play basketball and one of them and stuff like that. And he was right about the same age as she was. I guess they were about 8 years old. And he didn't live with his mother. He lived with his 2 sisters. Okay, his older sisters. I guess they were like 20, 21. Right? Oh, boy. And so I became friends with the two sisters. And when Vic would fall asleep at night, this was around the time too, I used to watch Real Housewives of New Jersey. Okay, the Real Housewives. And they were friends of Real Housewives. They were fans of Real Housewives of New Jersey too. So when those shows were on, like the Real Housewives of New Jersey and Orange County, those stupid Real Housewives shows were on, they would come over after the kids fell asleep, and they'd bring all these hors d'oeuvres and wine and stuff like that. We'd sit around and watch Real Housewives of New Jersey. So, and it was became this whole, weekly thing. And I think we did it like twice a week, because the shows are on twice a week. And, it was a lot of fun. And these kids were real cute. And, one of the things, okay, is that would come up in the conversation and stuff like that was going to church and the Bible and stuff like that, because I was a Christian, and they didn't go to church. But I'm sort of like this kind of cool guy, that does crazy stuff, and regular guy, and but I was, listen, for a while there, back in the 90s, I was in full-time ministry. I don't know how much I've talked about this on the air, but I just happened to mention to somebody this week on Facebook that they mentioned, oh, yeah, they're going to New York. And I say, hey, go visit Times Square Church. And they says, oh, yeah, Dave Wilkerson's church. And I says, oh, yeah, I knew Dave Wilkerson. I was a member of that church. But I knew Dave and Don Wilkerson and Pastor Crandall because Pastor Crandall's granddaughter worked for me at my beeper company. So I've been to barbecues with Dave Wilkerson and Don Wilkerson. So and I also, too, when I first got saved, I was the assistant youth pastor at this church in Staten Island. And then I went to live and travel with this gospel tent ministry up in Maine. I had Reverend Knight on the show here. So these kids would come over every week with the wine and the little sandwiches and the little hors d'oeuvres and stuff like that. And one of the things we would talk about was, faith. We'd talk about Jesus. We'd talk about the Bible and all that kind of stuff. And they would always kind of say, if we were ever going to go to church, we would go to your church, and we would want to go to church with you and see what it's really like. Okay? So, this might be a good time to play the commercial. And I need new commercials, by the way, because Bernie doesn't seem to be needing my help anymore. What the hell is that? Okay. Okay, let me set this up, and then we'll play our commercials. Oh, the computer is lagging so badly, man. I don't even know if people are hearing me. Okay. We will be right back after these messages. This is your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. And if you're enjoying the show right now, there's more. You can get more. You can go to the Ed Opperman YouTube channel, and you could subscribe there. And we have archives of all of our past shows for over the past 3 years, about 200, 300 shows. You can also go to the Opperman Report Spreaker channel, and you could follow us there. Again, a ton of shows, about 300 shows on there. And whenever we do an impromptu show, an emergency type broadcast that we do during the week occasionally, you'll get an email notifying you of breaking news and spontaneous broadcasts that we may do during the week. You can also go to oppermanreport.com and become a member. If you become a member, you help support the free archives on Spreaker and YouTube, and you help support the free shows on Friday evening and on Saturday evening. Each of these shows, Friday evening and Saturday evening, are carried for free on 7 internet stations, okay? So you help support that, but also, too, at OppermanReport.com in the members section, we have exclusive content. Shows that are recorded during the week that are only available to members. So please check out OppermanReport.com and help support the show.
The son of a Polish immigrant who grew up in a Brooklyn tenement, Bernie Sanders. He went to public schools, then college, where the work of his life began, fighting injustice and inequality, speaking truth to power. Bernie moved to Vermont, won election and praise as one of America's best mayors. In Congress, Bernie stood up for working families and for principle, opposing the Iraq War, supporting veterans. Now he's taking on Wall Street and a corrupt political system that holds up a rigged economy. Bernie's campaign is funded by over 1 million small contributions from people like you. He's fighting for living wages, equal pay, and tuition-free public colleges. Bernie Sanders.
People are sick and tired of establishment politics, and they want real change.
Bernie Sanders. Husband, father, grandfather. An honest leader. Building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
Check out strawmanmusic.com. Sean Duff is our webmaster here at the Opperman Report, and he's a very talented musician. He's part of a band called Strawman. They're based up there in Canada. Don't hold that against them. These are like-minded folks. If you like the shows you hear on the Opperman Report, you'll like the music that they have over at strawmanmusic.com.
Enough is enough. Wall Street's greed and illegal behavior drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the 1930s. And then, after getting a huge taxpayer bailout because they were too big to fail, it turns out that 3 out of the 4 largest banks are bigger today than they were before we bailed them out. That's crazy. I'm Bernie Sanders. My plan: break up the big banks who are strangling our economy and make them pay their fair share of taxes. Then we can invest in the middle class, expand Social Security, and provide universal college education. I'll rein in Wall Street behavior so they can't crash our economy again. Will they like me? No. Will they begin to play by the rules if I'm president? You better believe it. I'm Bernie Sanders, Democratic candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
You know, you can get a copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, if you go to my website, emailrevealer.com. Now, this is a limited edition book, okay? And you can get a signed copy of this book, and it'll be personally autographed to you or whoever you want to give the book to as a gift. Once you have my signature on that book, you can copy the signature and put it on checks and pass them all over the world. Emailrevealer.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator.
He's fought injustice and inequality his whole life. Bernie Sanders. As a college student, he was arrested for challenging segregated housing. Bernie marched with Dr. King and thousands of others for civil rights. In Congress, Bernie stood up for working families on health care and jobs. Now he's taking on Wall Street banks and a corrupt political system that keeps in place a rigged economy. Bernie Sanders, a reformer who believes in ending racial profiling and mass incarceration so the justice system works for everyone. Bernie Sanders.
There is no president who will fight harder to end institutional racism and reform our broken criminal justice system.
Bernie Sanders, an honest leader building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
I was just on mute that whole freaking time. Great. How much time did I just blow there? And you know what? I'm still on mute. I'm still on mute here. Okay, can you hear me now? Anybody? No one's listening. And they're in the chat room talking about cats. Okay, over here. Okay. Okay. I don't know how much you guys missed. There had to be some good chunk of the story there. Yeah, I'm back. Hey. Okay, no one was listening to the story anyway. So anyway, basically, here's what happened. Is I look in the back of the church, and who do I see back there but those girls who come to the house for the Real Housewives of New Jersey. They'd come to the church to surprise me. And, and I was happy to see them. And I looked back there, and they were all dressed up. There was three of them, because there were the two sisters, but they would always bring, like, a different friend with them every week, you know? And so I go back there, and I look back there, and they're all dressed up in these dresses and skirts and shoes and stuff. And they're all, they even had their hair done and stuff. Like, they were all excited to come to church and surprise me that they were going to come visit my church, the cool church where Eddie goes to church, And what do they just have to hear? This lunatic ranting and raving about abortion and how he's confronting people in cars and attracting attention to himself, and he's a big hero about confronting these, stupid abortion story. So I thought that was bad enough, I thought that was bad enough. But I found out it was even worse. And what happened was, about a couple of weeks, the next week, they came to the house, and I didn't bring anything up. It made me skip my mind or whatever. But a few weeks later, there was about 4 or 5 of us there watching The Real Housewives. And something came up about church. And I said, so how'd you like it? You came to the church, right? How'd you like it? And this look came over. The older girl who was the guardian of my daughter's friend, this look came over her face. And I'll never forget it. She made this speech. And she just said, I will never go back to that church again. And I thought it was because of the guy making the stupid speech about the abortion, about how he was a hero and stopping the car and confronting the man and doing all this hero stuff. But it was worse than that. Because it seems that when they had first showed up at the church, and they were like a little early, and they came looking for me, and they were all having fun and laughing. Where could it be? It's a big campus because they have schools and they have classes and stuff. And when they showed up, this guy, the same guy, the guy I don't like, that Victoria would call him, the man you don't like, approached them and made some kind of comment like, oh, well, ladies, you seem lost. Oh, boy, you look like you're dressed up for a party. And was making all these little snide remarks. Now, I'm sure the guy didn't realize he was being a jerk and being snide and turning people off. And I'm sure he does think that he's doing a good, virtuous thing by confronting people out in front of abortion clinics. And I'm sure whatever his reason is of why he needs to position himself to people pass by him or have all these kids, whatever this guy's doing in his life, I don't know. Okay? But I don't think his motives are evil. I don't think his motives are wrong, but they're just not well received by the people around him. Okay? He's a little too intense, a little too overbearing. Okay? And he turned these girls off, these young girls who were intrigued about coming to church. They saw something in me that they wanted to share in. And here's this guy who should be inviting people to church, but instead chasing people away from the church, when his whole mission in life is to be a church guy. You get my point? Okay? I know nobody's listening, but you get my point. Okay? Chat room's talking about hairdressers now. I don't know what they're talking about, but maybe someone out there is listening to me and has some kind of idea what I'm talking about. Now, the reason why I'm telling you that story, okay, is not just to complain about people in church, but it's the kind of, it's an analogy, okay, of this situation that I have almost every single week when I try to share with you my opinions on the Second Amendment and on these false flags and about this theory that the false flags are about taking guns from people. And we were just talking about it earlier in the chat room about how whenever one of these shootings happens, they sell more guns, they sell more bullets. And I had a discussion with the guest this evening who was on our show about that. And it becomes a very intense, passionate issue. And it seems that even though I'm well-meaning in trying to communicate to you what my positions are on the Second Amendment, because I do believe we have the right to bear arms, okay? And guns are a useful tool for many people, okay? But I don't have this kind of fetishist fascination with weapons where I pose with guns on Facebook, or every time the topic comes up, I got a Glock 40, all this, I got a Brita, 9mm, you start talking all this technical garbage, all this nonsense that is a big turnoff to me. And when I try to express myself, so many people just will take this completely the wrong way in what the point I'm trying to get across. When I'm just about to give up on this topic altogether. And, even one person says, well, I use guns for sporting. Well, so what? Go ahead. Use your guns for sporting, Anyway, but the thing is, I'm never going to get what I'm trying to convey across. Okay, there's a small percentage that's getting it, but so many people you can't listen to what I'm saying in passing without concentrating, without paying attention to what I'm saying and grasp what I'm saying. And so much of the radio and stuff like that, you just got to be real. You got to repeat yourself over and over like you're driving in a car, and listen to AM radio in the car. And it got to be so simplistic. Your message has to be so simplistic, that people just can't get it. Now, I appreciate that there's a lot of people that are just way beyond that. You're tuned in. You get what people are talking about. But as the audience grows and grows and grows, we got all these new people just nagging me and annoying the hell out of me. Anyway, I'm making no sense tonight. I know I'm not. Because the moral of this story was supposed to be, for all of you out there who call yourselves lovers of the Constitution, and defenders of the Constitution, and defenders of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment of the Constitution is so important to you. That the cold, dead hands are going to take your guns away from you. But yet, in the past 2 weeks, we had a Supreme Court ruling that totally gutted the Fourth Amendment. Your right of unreasonable search and seizure. Okay? That the police aren't allowed to search you. That the police aren't allowed to seize your property. The Fourth Amendment. Now, what they did, there was a new ruling that came out that attacks the exclusionary rule, that if the police obtain evidence in violation of your constitutional rights, normally, with the exclusionary rule, they cannot use that evidence in court against you. Okay? And there was a new ruling in the Supreme Court that if the police can pull, tonight, the police can pull every single one of us over on the side of the road and search our cars in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Okay? And search your body. And you can't say to them, well, where's your warrant? Because That's all out the window now. They don't need a warrant. Okay, this is what happened in the past couple of weeks. And are you aware of that? No, because people are so worried about the Second Amendment. No one cares about the Fourth Amendment, which is what is really protecting you. You have a far more likely chance in your life to be arrested, okay? 25% of this country is under some kind of a probation, parole, court supervised something or other. You have a far more likely chance in your life to be arrested and want some kind of evidence that's being used against you excluded from that courtroom. That the judge will rule that they are not allowed to use that evidence against you because it's a violation of your rights. You are more likely to want to use the Fourth Amendment in your life than you will ever likely be in a shootout, a gunfight, under the Second Amendment. Okay? That's just a fact. That's reality. The Fourth Amendment is more valuable to you than the Second Amendment. People don't realize that. Because people think, well, I'll never be at the defense table. I'll never be accused of a crime. I'll never get caught up in something. Okay? When the fact is, most people are. I was just saying, I was up all night and then up to crack of dawn this morning, keeping this guy out of jail, despite his own efforts to sabotage himself. Beyond belief. There was a Supreme Court ruling that totally guts the exclusionary rule. They can stop you, they can search you, and they can use that evidence against you in court if they find that there's a warrant for your arrest. Okay? So this is all brand new. This is all brand new territory, guys. And these are the things that, now theoretically you can say, well, Ed, we need our Second Amendment, we need our guns to defend ourselves from this tyranny. Okay, well, there's enough guns for every man, woman, and child in this country, and nobody's using them for that purpose. So, but I know this point is not going to get across to you, okay? And I'm almost ready to say I'm going to surrender even trying to make this point any longer because it's hopeless. There's a programming that people just cannot hear the words. That there's a brainwashing and a programming that anything involving guns is a trigger in people's heads, and they just shut off their ears and they can't hear what I'm saying. And I know, maybe I'm not making myself clear again this time, but I know there's going to, and people talking about in the chat room before about the Facebook, the YouTube comments. You guys, you got to realize half of those YouTube comments are withheld. They don't even make it to the board on YouTube. They're the most. I screen half of those before they even get there. Anyway, I can say this is just hopeless. So, okay, I don't know what to say anymore. I've had it. Okay. I've had it. It's freaking hopeless. There's no way to have this discussion any longer. There's just no way to do it. So, all right, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll talk to you next week.